Hello. Welcome to Insureblocks Open Source. This is episode number 4, and I'm very excited to have another new brave soul to join us, Mr. Ken Mark. And of course, I'm very happy to have returning to Insureblocks Open Source, Rory Unsworth and Mark Simpson. Say hi, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Always is your stylish kiss. Ken, could you please introduce yourself and tell us why have you decided to join this community and what you're hoping to achieve from it?
Yes, I'm Ken Mark. I was previously with B3I as Chief Marketing Officer. I left at the end of last year, and I'm currently sort of floating around, not doing quite a lot, but just relaxing my brain, if you like. Very important in these times. And why did I join the Insureblocks community? Well, to kind of put it in a nutshell, Waleed, you asked for some help in developing it based on the experience I had with B3I developing that community, and then to be a guinea pig. So here I am. I might learn something, or you might learn something from me.
I'm sure it will be very mutual. I hope you brought some glasses of wine. Your nice vineyard behind looks very inviting.
Thank you very much.
Ken, what is it you found in the news interesting this week?
Well, to say it was in the news, it was actually on LinkedIn, but it's still news. And it was an interview, and I'll give you the link to it later, with somebody I know very well, a guy called Neil Mullarkey. He's one of the founders of the Comedy Store in London. Okay. And he was being asked about Zoom etiquette, or rather communicating in a COVID world. Really hard to condense everything he talked about in 60 seconds, or probably 40 by now. But there's a lot about improv skills that come to the fore when we're dealing with something, a new technology, a new way of communicating. And indeed, this isn't going to go away once we return to normal, whatever that is. We're still going to be probably using Zoom extensively. But there are some things that he kind of highlighted that are really quite interesting to sort of think about. Some key things are obviously listen and pay attention. And the spotlight's on you all the time. It's not like in a room when you look around and you look at different people. You're being looked at all the time. All three of you, I'm looking at you right now. So there's nowhere to hide. The backgrounds that we use, yes, you just hit them. Very, very, very good. The backgrounds we use, what does that tell us about us? I mean, I'm trying to portray a kind of relaxed atmosphere with a nice colored t-shirt, and Mark's being playful with his Minecraft, and you're trying to look serious in your sort of warehouse living room. But also how you present yourself. Now, my son was on a call, a couple of calls the other day, doing some interviews for his masters. Now, he actually went and got changed. He went and had a shower. He actually put some scent on as well. And I said, well, they can't smell you over the airwaves. But, he just said he felt better. He just felt better doing that. And then, another thing is about creating energy. When we're in a room, we can get up and walk around, create energy and stuff like that. Whereas here, we'll just sit there, and waiting for something to happen. And the final, well, two other ones. I mean, one is around respecting space. You don't know when to cut in and when to say something. And the worst Zoom calls are where everyone's trying to pile in, but it's kind of leaving a bit of a gap and trying. I mean, I can see on your lips, you want to butt in now, Waleed. So etiquette dictates I should kind of give you a bit of space to do that. And finally, leaving well. What's the best way to leave a call? So there's a few things, but I'll send you the link and put it out. And there's a really, he's a great guy, Neil, good buddy. And improv is a great technique.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ken. Mark, I'm afraid you're just beaten in terms of background. Ken's looks a lot more inviting, but I'd love to hear more about it.
So it is following on from last week's discussion about Minecraft. So it is a Minecraft background, and I'll come back to that later. Yeah, but it's interesting, Ken, what you say as well, because I have a standing desk, and I stand up for calls so I can move around, and it definitely changes my state, and I'm the better for it, definitely. I'm not sure the audience and the people on the call always are with me. I can really bob around if I get animated, but yeah, it definitely works. So I have two interestings this week, if I can jump into that. So the first one was that on May the 26th, Amazon filed another patent, not unusual, but they filed one based on blockchain tracking. So they're looking to build a catalogue to verify items, and they have so much stock. They have an issue over subpar or fake products. So they're looking to do that. They hint heavily towards using Hyperledger in it. And in the patent paper itself, what I found quite interesting is they use the line, "Trust is earned. Once it's lost, it can be difficult to regain." Kind of reminds me of the insurance industry. But it's also interesting because Amazon can do things at a real scale when you look at their spend and their range and what they're doing. So I think it's another interesting one. And then the second one, to keep it really brief, is today there was an announcement from Waves Enterprise, and they're starting beta testing on a corporate voting platform for shareholder voting, trying to make it more transparent. And again, it's underpinned by blockchain so that you can't, again, in a trustless environment, only one eligible vote per eligible voting person, so to speak. So it doesn't allow forging and stealing. And I think it's quite opportune in the time in the UK when we've had lots of different opinions over whether Parliament needs to be present to vote or not. But I think it could be an interesting stretch when we see this going on in the corporate space.
Definitely interesting. And also, just to add on Amazon, they're actually the number one firm who spends the most on R&D. So I'm not surprised about that patent. Interesting. Rory?
Mark, it sounds really a bit more complicated than the parliamentary one, even because you've got that dimension of ownership, haven't you? That you get votes pro rata to your share ownership, and therefore it's you said shareholder, didn't you?
Yeah, definitely more complicated. And again, allegedly it's going to use proof of stake and proof of authority.
Perfect. It's a perfect use case for blockchain, isn't it? Mine is pretty worky too, Wally, this week. It's around the WEF's blockchain toolkit. Now, it is absolutely huge, right? If you print it off, I think it's like 250 pages or something, but the information design is really excellent, so it doesn't scare you. And as a lawyer, I was really interested in the compliance areas, the legal compliance areas, and I would describe that really as a guide for practitioners. I guess it's a little bit like your car maintenance manual. The person most likely to read it is probably not you, it's probably your mechanic. But it does have all the sections you need to think about: data protection, tax IP, an explanation of smart contracts, the challenges around that, jurisdictional challenges, all that kind of stuff. So in a practical implementation context, it's got a very nice checklist for lawyers and experts in creating compliance systems. So really can provide a great framework. Weakness, it doesn't look totally complete in parts yet. There are bits where it's a bit sort of sketchy. I guess it'll grow over time, and there aren't any case studies or illustrative examples. It's early days, I guess, of the technology, and it's probably a community platform like ours that's better placed to provide the types of examples, but great in terms of breadth. And again, I'll attach a link to it in the materials afterwards.
Excellent, because I actually got I'm in discussion with a senior actually lady from Dubai on their blockchain initiatives and how they actually use the World Economic Forum's toolkit in their day-to-day work in implementing blockchain. Ken, you had a comment you wanted to make a few minutes earlier.
Yeah, on Mark's point about Parliament, I mean, you've got Minecraft in the background. Why can't we have a Minecraft Parliament?
I'll see if I can get one of those for next week.
Why can't they have a version of Minecraft for their Parliament?
Absolutely, and they could, and we could scrutinise it. I mean, that definitely, and it's back to your point about etiquette. Environment shapes how we are, and the different styles of Parliament. Without getting into that, I'll just say ours is very different to the rest of the world.
That is for sure. Ken, what is it you found in the news that made you wonder? I'm sure there's a whole range you can choose from.
What did I find in the news that made me wonder? And a few months ago, before all of this kind of blew up, I was at a conference and I made the point about whether all the information about what was going on in China, if it was on a blockchain and shared amongst the relevant parties, perhaps a lot of the problems we've had could have been sort of avoided or mitigated. It's getting early access to that information, but also trusting it, etc., etc., etc. And I will come back to a point that Mark made, last week about the data you put in. But my point is, in the news today was about how Beijing has frustrated the World Health Organization by withholding information. Even to the extent that the delayed information included the genome of the coronavirus, and also the fact that sometimes the WHO representatives picked up information an hour before it was released on, to the press. And that withholding of information is really appalling, in my humble opinion. And had it been released and shared a lot earlier, people, could have avoided a lot of the deaths that we faced and a lot of the problems. It does, come back to the point that, I think Mark made, last week. I listened to the recording. About, or I think Oliver asked the question, it all depends on the people who put the information in the first place. But what's behind this, and it's not only about blockchain, but it's also about other technologies and automating everything as much as possible, because machines don't make mistakes. Yes, we might make mistakes building the machines or coding them, but machines don't make mistakes, and they put the information out there because they're told to do that. And just makes me wonder how much things might have been different.
I mean, if we had those kind of blockchain systems enabled, for the sharing of information, for the transparency, for you to be able to trust it and check the provenance of it, it's applicable in so many different areas. It's unfortunate, but hoping we can all learn from this and start developing these systems in earnest, because these things will come back, these kind of pandemics. So we need to be better prepared. Mark, you wanted to share a point regarding what made you wonder in the news?
I wonder, and in part it actually links on to the topic that you've just raised, Ken. So for me, it's around, again, a bit of a Minecraft theme, and just coincidentally, but it's around decentralization and uncensored libraries. So there's the organization Reporters Without Borders, and they've done some amazing work in terms of fighting censorship and practically being able to do that. And they've teamed up with a firm in the UK called the Blockworks and a couple of other design media agencies. And they've created the Uncensored Library that, again, is distributed and lives within Minecraft. And it's got works by authors that are censored around the world. There are over 200 books inside there, and you can go inside the library. You can download the library. Again, it's hosted on a variety of servers, and see that. It's not the first example. I mean, there's actually a distributed version, kind of an alternate to Wikipedia, Everpedia. And again, it's distributed. The text isn't actually kept on blockchain, but the upvotes for edits are hashed and put on blockchain, so that people can kind of trust the latest editions. And then when you download it, you've got this latest edition. So I think it's building on this trust piece that Ken talked about, and it's operating without borders. And again, I'm thinking about so many applications of just increasing trust of information. So yeah, it's really got me thinking about that.
Indeed, I think it's interesting how far it will go. I mean, how is it selected what information goes into that space? I mean, you could have some interesting books that were banned by jurisdictions that have corrupt regimes, but it could also be for example, I know it's an extreme one, but I think it still is banned. Mein Kampf is banned in Germany, for example.
Certain countries, yeah. I don't
exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, how it all plays out, how they're going to be able to balance all these things. But Rory, tell me, what is it that you found that made you wonder in the news this week?
Well, mine is a bit of a rehash of a Facebook story. Now, I got in trouble from Walid a couple of sessions ago for going on far too long about Facebook. So I'll keep it nice and short. But basically, the thing that had me wondering was something around once again, Facebook proving that the weakness of the original setup of an initiative is going to haunt it forever, right? So that for me made it worth repeating and worth wondering about how that initial setup cost and care is, how it basically validates the business and the setup forever and ever. What's the story? Well, the story is Trump tweets a threat of violence on the George Floyd demonstrators. And then he transfers the tweet to Facebook. Big emergency meeting at Facebook. Everyone is saying, got to take it down, and Zook overrides everyone else. So people, compliance and ethics cannot be managed by a dictator. Can't have someone fully in control, and we've got to bear that in mind about ownership structures when building future businesses and compliance systems. Ken, you had that with B3I, right? There were initial discussions about who should own, and that's a very, very valuable discussion. It takes quite a long time, but very important, because otherwise it just comes up again and again, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I almost see it from two angles, Rory. So how you architect and build design, not just into the technology, but your operating structure. And if you've got some smart enablement of that later on, it's going to execute what's predetermined. But the ability to flex, I mean, we're already seeing the new version of the web required, because it's no longer kind of deemed fit for purpose in a decentralized world. But underpinning it all, we come back to beliefs and values that influence behaviors. So something has gone on inside Facebook where we've seen a clash of values and beliefs. And no amount of architecting can paper over that. It's a real moment of truth.
Exactly. Well, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. I'm afraid we're out of time, so I'm going to wish you a wonderful end of the week. Have a great weekend. And to you, the community, thank you so much for listening. Please don't hesitate to message us if you'd like to be part of our next open source episode for the weeks to come. We'd love to have you on board. And as you can see, we're quite gentle with all our guests. Excellent, guys. Thank you so much.
Ken,
Cheers,
thanks
Ken,
all.
again. Thank
Have
you.
a great weekend.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.